Okay, so yeah, today I wanted to talk about my own journey to AI, just because I think a lot of these talks end up being rather technical, but I wanted to kind of take a departure from that in order to give you all kind of my unique story and maybe help ease your fears and worries a little bit. So yeah, we'll kind of start where you are right now, like when I was in your shoes. So before college, I was born and raised in South Carolina, and it was pretty interesting growing up there, just because I was like definitely pretty different. I was curious, smart, kind of didn't look like people around me because I'm Latino, and I didn't really believe in like the same things that people typically believe in South Carolina. And because of that, I was like pretty shy and like spent a lot of time on my own, just because I felt like kind of out of place there. But at the same time, I did enjoy that time a lot, and I spent it kind of learning a ton of new things and like exploring my curiosity, and also playing a lot of video games, uh, just like kind of furthering my interest in STEM and like technology in general. And then when I got to high school, that kind of even more focused like on STEM fields in general. So I liked math, I liked biology, physics, chemistry, basically you name it, and I like took that class just because I was so interested in everything. Um, but interestingly enough, I ended up not taking any computer science at all in high school. So the reason why was because there was an AP bio class at the same exact time, and I just ended up choosing bio because I was very interested in that at the time. So yeah, it's very interesting that like something I was never exposed to at a young age, I ended up kind of falling in love with. And it's interesting too because there was a lot of things I was in love with then, like government and psychology, sociology, like a bunch of other subjects as well that I took. But ultimately, I kind of focused more on like science, and then ended up focusing the most on chemistry. So later in high school, I ended up doing some research in chemistry with a university in South Carolina called Clemson University. And it was biochemistry research testing the toxicity of a chemotherapeutic drug. And I was able to use like a delivery molecule that they had developed to make that like delivery easier. Um, and yeah, that was a great experience. Like from that, I kind of realized more and more that science was for me. Like this was cool, like all this hands-on stuff. I was like doing research that had like an impact, and hopefully a good impact overall. And yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun, as you can see from this little picture over here. I was like doing research with my friend as well. So the community was awesome. And yeah, that experience kind of definitely solidified in me that I wanted to do science. So around the time I was applying, I ended up applying to a lot of like sciencey colleges and like some other like broader colleges. So like Clemson, like Caltech, also U Chicago. And I think in the end, I kind of was between Caltech and U Chicago. But because I wanted to do chemistry so badly at this point, and like biochemistry in particular, I ended up choosing Caltech over U Chicago just because of that one reason mostly. Yeah, so after kind of getting into Caltech, I was able to participate in this summer program for like incoming freshmen, where you're kind of immersed in the campus culture, the whole research environment, like the culture of Pasadena, which is where Caltech is, and like LA overall. And it was amazing. Like I met a lot of people, made friendships. Um, it was just a nice like little taste of what was to come. Um, and of course, research is in the name of this freshman summer research institute. So I did some research, but it was on astrophysics here. So it wasn't like necessarily my first choice, just because I didn't really have any idea about anything about that. But I think I ultimately benefited from it just because there was some chemistry involved, of course. But I also ended up getting an intro to programming with this kind of obscure programming language called the interactive data language. And apparently that my like professor said mostly I think astrophysicists and oceanographers use that. So it definitely wasn't like the best intro to programming, but even though like I struggled with it, it was definitely very beneficial just because I was starting to see kind of the possibilities that computer science allowed for, and I didn't even realize it at the time. So yeah, with that, I like got a little bit of a taste, and of course, I ended up going to college in the fall. But in that transition, I realized I was like very quickly overwhelmed with everything. Um, so yeah, I basically moved across the country and I was like away from all my family, which were mostly in South Carolina and the East Coast generally. Um, there was like independence with the move. Like, of course, that was a preferred thing, but at the same time, it was very scary just because like this was a brand new thing. A lot of my family hadn't gone to like colleges of this caliber, so didn't really know how to navigate this. Completely different environment. Making friends was also pretty hard. Even though I did have some friendships, that was just like another thing that I had to kind of think of as I was like being introduced to college. And then, of course, the biggest thing I think was like the caliber of Caltech, the fact that like going from a South Carolina like public school to like a college of this caliber was like a huge jump. So yeah, and there was even more beyond that. Just like so many things, basically anything you can think of changed in my life, and it was just like a very hard transition to deal with. So I ended up taking time off, making that decision just to within a month of getting there, just return home and kind of focus on myself. So um, I didn't really want to do that at first, just because I was like, I'm already here. Like, I want to continue. Like, I'm making friends. I don't want to like cut this short. But I think ultimately it was the best thing for me. And when I got home, I was like kind of thinking more about CS because I was more introduced to it with an intro CS class and with that summer research. And I was like, I'm going to explore this some because I want to try and catch up with like other people and explore this interest even more because I'd never been exposed to it. And again, very curious person. So yeah, I ended up taking this like intro Harvard CS course online that I found. Um, and as I kind of watched more and more of those lectures, I fell more and more in love with it. And I got even more confidence because it was in C, which is like not also not like the best language to start with. But the fact that I could learn that fairly easily really increased my confidence and made me realize that like if I can learn this, then maybe I can learn like anything. So yeah, with that increasing confidence and like that time off to kind of focus on myself, I was able to then return to college later that year. And even though like things were better, there was still plenty of dilemmas to consider. So I ended up still kind of focusing on chemistry because I had the most background there and already had done a lot of research. So I did even more research at Caltech with like DNA chemistry and looking at this thing called the charge transport model. And I love that research as well. But as I did more and more of that research, I was kind of realizing that maybe this isn't the thing for me just because the like results of that research didn't feel like immediate enough in like helping people. And it was like research that was kind of obscure. Like I couldn't really talk to my friends back home about it. Like they wouldn't really understand without me having to go like really in depth about everything. Um, and yeah, it was just like um, really me realizing more and more that I didn't really want to do specifically chemistry. And then I started leaning more towards like physics, just because it felt less. There would be definitely less pipetting there at the very least, and it was kind of related to chemistry in a way. So I think I started taking more classes in that and in astrophysics as well. But then I started running into the same kind of thoughts where I was like, this stuff is like not really having an immediate impact. I don't really like the work that's surrounding it. Maybe this isn't for me either. So from there, I was like, what do I want to do? Like, do I want to do like maybe like policy stuff, like law, because that was interesting to me, and like the political landscape was like changing a lot in that time. Same thing with like journalism and investigative journalism, like that was becoming more interesting to me. Um, and I was just like having plenty of dilemmas in this time, but uh, as I learned more about CS, I was kind of realizing more and more that that would be kind of the best option for me because my curiosity never like died down from that. And I also was able to like explore other fields with CS, of course, because it's not only is it like an interesting field itself, it's definitely a very great tool to be applied very generally. So the dilemma kind of like simplified itself in that like I knew I didn't really want to do any of the hard sciences here. Um, I was still kind of considering like non-STEM stuff, like stuff outside of all of these hard sciences and computer science and everything. But ultimately, I was like, I think computer science will be best for me because that will like be very generally applicable. So if I want to go back to chemistry or physics, like I'll have CS to use in those fields, and it's very useful for basically anything. Um, did I think about doing CS in high school? Not at all. It was not on my radar at all. I definitely wanted to take that class in high school, but I wasn't really like hung up about it. Like I was just kind of like, that was just something I didn't take, and I wasn't really considering it anyway. Um, yeah, it's interesting that I didn't though, because I ended up kind of considering it even more in college. Um, so yeah, this like dilemma kind of simplified here, but then with that simplification, that slight simplification, I kind of had even more dilemmas because at this point I kind of thought like, well, if I don't really like the hard sciences, if computer science is the only thing I really want to do in STEM, and if I really like all this other stuff like government policy and journalism and all that stuff, did I make the right decision when I first started off? Like, should I have chosen U Chicago instead when I was making that decision? Um, Now that I'm like around halfway through my college career, should I transfer to another college? Should I continue with Caltech and try to like catch up with the CS major here? Should I start over? Like, what should I do here? Because I feel like I've wasted like a lot of time here. And there's like still so much I want to explore. And yeah, that was another set of dilemmas. But then eventually I kind of just decided that if I were to transfer or start over, I'd kind of go through that whole process again, those same issues that I was having when I first started college. So I thought like the best option for me would just to be switching my major to CS and then continuing trying to catch up and finish the degree there. So that's what I ended up doing. But yeah, there were many, many options there, and it was a very hard decision to make, of course. So yeah, from there, I ended up taking a bunch of courses in CS, from like GPU programming to statistics to databases to algorithms to networks to as many as I could, basically. I didn't get to take as many as I wanted to, but there were a bunch I was able to take in the end. And from there, I kind of realized after taking a few machine learning classes that that was kind of more what I wanted to do. So I did like some projects where I produced some Shakespearean sonnets to like mediocre success, I would say. So that was kind of on the simpler side, but then I was able to kind of graduate from that into doing like a COVID-19 model, like toward the beginning of the pandemic, to help like predict deaths based on past deaths and like on a per county basis. So yeah, doing this work, I was like, yeah, this is definitely stuff that is very helpful and like still like kind of advanced and not easy to explain, but definitely better and easier to explain than like the harder sciences. So yeah, I like kind of narrowed it down to machine learning here, but you can see I said sort of, just because machine learning itself, it has so many like different kind of subfields in it. I could do more research in like some field, like do I want to continue doing like healthcare and government policy research, or maybe data science and other research fields? Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to do stuff like this, where like GPU programming has been very beneficial with machine learning in recent years because it's helped speed up all of these calculations that we need that are necessary for like training models. So that could be a field I could go into because that was an interesting class I took. Statistics as well, like researching those models themselves, like the benefits and drawbacks of each. And like even beyond that, like databases, algorithms, all those other classes I named, those are things I could use to apply to machine learning. So even though now I'm like definitely more sure that machine learning is more where I want to end up, I'm still kind of like up in the air of like where I want to end up within machine learning. So yeah, it's not quite figured out yet, but I think we're definitely more figured out than I used to be. So yeah, basically to conclude like this overall presentation, I just want to like convey that you don't have to have everything figured out, because like I definitely do not, even though I like, I'm sure I like machine learning a lot. And I also want to reiterate that like we all have like our own struggles, of course. So you're definitely not alone if you're having a hard time or if you feel like you need time off for whatever reason. Um, it's definitely more common than you may expect or may like have seen. Like I'm one example of a person that has taken time off from college and I'm still like pretty successful in my overall like career. Um, and yeah, I think all of you are doing great things already. Like this course is a great introduction to all of this, but it's of course natural to feel like overwhelmed with all this content and kind of the fast pace of it. But I want you all to like remember like how much you've already learned in such a short time, and how much you're going to be able to achieve like within the projects um, and the presentations at the end of this week. So yeah, I just want to like definitely make sure you're all like proud of yourselves and to like say that I'm really excited to see like what you'll end up doing in these projects and in your lives beyond this course. Um, yeah, and I don't think we have time for questions, but we do have like a college and career panel after presentations on Friday. So if anything, like if you think you might want to take time off in college, or if you have questions about stuff surrounding that or chemistry or basically anything I talked about, there'll definitely be time then to ask me.